Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through the information that we wish to provide and bottom line it for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of these other pre-valued currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started, talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq today. The information that I have to provide is pretty much in line with what I said last week with just a few enhancements. But first, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or the purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we believe to be relevant. The most relevant piece of information, of course, is a viable window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that January of 2020 remains the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar for a number of reasons that I've discussed each and every week. But let's get into the information again for today. First, Iraq is in the process, as we speak, of consummating a number of international contracts having to do primarily with the rebuilding of their electrical grid, their infrastructure, and a lot of other issues. Iraq at present is producing over 5 million barrels of oil a day. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. There have been recent reports that the reinstitution of the currency might be held up because there is a deficit in the Iraqi budget. That is not true. There's, in fact, a surplus in the budget because not only of the increased production of oil, but because indirectly of the destruction of one of Saudi Arabia's largest oil-producing facilities. The projection is that they lost almost 50% short-term of their production of oil. The result is an increase in the global price of a barrel of oil from anywhere from $10 to $15. So that, for the wrong reason, even creates a greater surplus for Iraq. Now, the government of Iraq has negotiated with a number of countries. The estimate for the rebuilding of the infrastructure of Iraq is $88 billion. We're talking 3 to 5 years for the completion of that rebuilding of the infrastructure. So we're looking conservatively at about $20 billion a year. Once again, it's pretty hard to develop contracts of that nature if you're running a deficit because countries simply are not sure that they're going to be paid. So that again points to the fact that there's either a substantial surplus now, or based on the daily production of 5 million barrels a day, there will be a substantial surplus, certainly sufficient to pay for the international contracts. Another good thing about this is that it further separates Iraq from Iran, which is another important component in all of this. Iraq is also negotiating with China on a couple of issues. One having to do with the reinstitution of the Silk Road, the new Silk Road initiative. That's a long-term proposition, but they're also negotiated the sale of petroleum. Again, this is important for a couple of reasons. It to some degree undercuts the sale of oil that Iran has made to China, but again, it also helps to separate Iraq from Iran by increasing the profit and the revenues generated by the sale of Iraqi crude to other nations, inclusive of China. Iraq continues with its program to delete the zeros, which of course is critical for the reinstitution of their currency. The deletion of the zeros in country is a prerequisite along with a couple of other issues. Now, there is a fly in the ointment, which I discussed last week. It seems that the 2020 Iraqi budget will not be scheduled for formal debate until early November. Now, that's more than sufficient time for them to negotiate and then pass the 2020 budget by January 1st of next year. But there has been some suggestion that they ought to hold off on the release of the coinage until that budget process is completed. Now, the problem with that is that the CBI wanted in 2012 and 2014, when the possibility of a reinstitution existed, they wanted the coinage in circulation to the general population for 90 days prior to the reinstitution. So if it takes them until, say, mid-November to conclude the budget and then release the coinage from the 8 regional banks to the general public, then if you extrapolate from that, we're looking at March for the reinstitution. Now, March is the last month of a given quarter, which does create complications for us in terms of exchanges and the tax implications. But I do not think that if the budget is passed in November and if the coinage is withheld until it's passed, there are so many problems in attempting to pass the budget when you know that the reinstitution is imminent in March. It makes no sense, in my view. So in my opinion, they will waive the quote-unquote 90-day circulation issue that the CBI has requested and go to the reinstitution of the currency simultaneous with the passage of the budget by January 1st. Now, because we're dealing with Iraq, we always have to deal with the fact that at the last second, something happens to postpone the inevitable. And that could theoretically happen here. But for all of the reasons that I've stated, I still feel that there is not a probability, but a strong possibility that the budget will be passed by January 1st of 2020, that the dinar will reinstitute in country in January of 2020, which means that certainly by February 1st, the IMF will take the dinar out of the program rate and we'll be able to go to the banks and negotiate our exchange. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's good news. I get calls from people all the time that are disappointed. They say, we have to wait until January. But so many people have had currencies for so long, the next couple of months, as far as I'm concerned, is not a long haul at all. Now, for those of you that have not gotten your affairs in order and may not understand what that involves, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. The reason we've done this is very simple. Most dinarians are not wealthy people. They have not had to deal with large, substantial amounts of money to manage from an investment standpoint, from a liquidity standpoint, from a tax standpoint, from a risk standpoint. And so they're unaware of the things that need to be done in order to protect this newfound wealth. To that end, Trust Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and your other currencies to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, pre-RV, the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts, again with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Now, there are a number of entities one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations. They do provide some asset protection, primarily separating business assets from personal assets. But these currencies are personal possessions. They are personal assets. They do not constitute a business. In addition, some courts have ruled that if an LLC or sub-S corporation is owned by one person or if a majority of the stock within those entities is owned by one person or a closely held group, they can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to be sufficient and provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established a trust referred to as a revocable living trust. Now, those trusts are designed primarily to exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some cases to help reduce the federal estate tax exposure. But revocable trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be insufficient. Some individuals have established a single irrevocable trust. Now, that does provide asset protection and privacy. However, if any asset within a single trust is involved in civil litigation, that necessarily would bring all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation because they are all owned by the same entity. The best bulletproof asset protection one can acquire domestically is a package of irrevocable trusts, and there are a number of reasons why that trust package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. For example, our trust package will provide privacy and anonymity. Why? Because the assets held within our trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth. Second, by establishing our trust package and assigning your currencies to that package, you will be able to successfully avoid IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would be extremely frustrating because it would come along at precisely the time you are trying to deal with the revaluation of these currencies. And the cost of a 6-year IRS audit would be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within the trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package, because included in this package is our exclusive gift subtrust. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax by gifting currency to family and friends, you're going to need to gift the currencies prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currencies to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust. This gift subtrust will protect their USD the same way it will protect your USD because it's included within the package. In addition, the language of this subtrust will allow you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will have complete control of the post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to those individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much each stands to inherit. And this can pose a problem for larger estates, because if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to 100% of their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, assign the currencies to our trust, they subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is why we have created a package of trusts. This is how it would work. Once again, we use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim understandably wants to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you're merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person. So this trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you in Phase 2. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by the transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We will have our tax specialists there to assist you with some very peculiar tax issues we may be dealing with. Our offshore specialist will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and in different markets as quickly as possible. And third, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to continue to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your money invested in tangible assets to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust if you wish to gift currencies to family and friends through our trust package, which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional standard subtrusts, which can hold assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized for our affluent clients in the past, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to assist Dinarians, we knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So by restructuring that package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone who has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place and their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you, because our objective is to help you get your affairs in order for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now, we're going to go to the Q&A in a moment, but before we do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you, and at the very least, getting our initial no-obligation package, which I will be explaining. Our trust package has been authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. However, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them and lose them entirely. And it happens at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of your package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, I thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. We're going to go to the Q&A here in just a moment. For our newer callers, I suggest you have a pen and paper handy because I will be giving you our contact information. I strongly suggest you get our initial no-obligation package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation for receiving the package. It has a lot of information about us, about the evaluation, about how these trusts work. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions. There will be no consultation fee, and if you should decide to proceed, everything you need will be included in the package. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A here. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. Our clients can contact us either by phone or email. By the way, this reminds me, I have about a half a dozen people I need to contact that have contacted me this week. I've spoken to a great many people, but I still have about a half a dozen to talk with. I will be speaking with you all later today to wrap this up. I may not be available Thursday and Friday because I'm leaving town for a family wedding, but I certainly will pick things up no later than Sunday for anyone that contacts us tomorrow, Friday, or Saturday. Second rule, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give our newer callers our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394#. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails will probably be going out on a weekly basis. Well, let's go to the Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. This is Praveen from New York. I have a question about the Saudi oil strikes.
Yes.
Now, would that delay the RV because of war? I mean, I know Trump said he didn't really want to go to war with Iran, but could that? I know he mentioned sanctions, but could that delay the RV?
Theoretically, it could, but I don't think that will be the case. The administration has basically signaled that this destruction of the soil cannot be irrefutably proved to be the work of Iran. And I think the red line is the destruction of an American facility or the death of an American citizen. I think that would be the red line. And I think also that Iran wants to manipulate the situation to postpone a revow because that would separate Iraq, one of Iran's largest customer, from them. So I don't think that's going to be successful. I think that the administration wants to see Iraq move through all of this. I do think, however, they will be dealing with Iran because if you understand the Iranian mullahs, and the best way to understand their thinking, if you want to call it thinking, is to Google something called the 12th Imamers. These are a very small sect of radical Shia that are the 12th Imamers. That's who these mullahs of Iran are. If you read that, you will understand what Iran's up to, and I do not think they will be successful in postponing the revow. The one thing that could be successful in postponing the reinstitution would be some of the nefarious, corrupt officials in Iraq for their own personal reasons that simply do not want to see this happen.
Okay, I have another thing. Now, do you think that the Saudi oil strikes could have been done on purpose, so then the price of oil would rise, and then Iraq would benefit from that, and when they revalued and all that?
Well, if Iraq would benefit in it, so would Iran, because remember, there are a couple of countries that are not honoring the U.S. Sanctions against Iran. So an increase in the price of a barrel would help Iran just as much as it would help Iraq. Now, there are people that believe strongly that Iran was behind this, and the circumstantial evidence would suggest that. However, there is a tinfoil hat group that believe that, in fact, the CIA is behind it because they want to create a scenario where there would be war with Iran. I believe that that's possible, but I think that it's highly unlikely. But the increase in the price of barrel would help any nation that's primary revenues are generated through the sale of globally of petroleum, and that would include Russia.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Sure. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is, my computer's a little slow here. My next caller is area 312. That's probably less.
Yes, indeed. Finally, I get my turn. Hey,
yeah.
Jim.
Now, what are you going to stump me with today?
Well, last week, that joker Maliki got busted with all that money, right? What the hell happened?
We assume it was Maliki. I certainly don't know who else it would be other than some of his cronies.
On his plane? On Maliki's plane?
Oh, I was not aware it was his plane. I just understood that he was involved. Yeah. Well, of course, as you know, I've been saying all along that the corrupt officials have been skimming money from the corrupt auctions, and they've been moving the money out of the country. So when the reval happens, they can take advantage of the fact that the 3 zeros will not be deleted for them. So it doesn't surprise me at all.
But that was a hell of a skim. But it was all U.S. dollars.
Well, but, it's like Saddam Hussein before them. I mean, these people are grandiose in their scheme. I always say to even some of my wealthy clients that take higher risks, I say, look, how many yachts can you water ski behind at the same time? I mean, when is enough enough? You can only do so much. Right. There's only 24 hours in a day.
I agree.
So, these people are the victims of their own obscene greed, and, Maliki is probably trying to buy his way out of what he knows is going to happen. When all this is resolved and the country turns to the implementation of the Justice and Accountability Act or Accountability and Justice Act, people like Maliki are in trouble, and they know it. So the only thing I guess they can think of is to buy their way out of it.
And you're hard on the Iranians. And look at these jokers in Iraq, or is Maliki an Iranian?
Yeah, but remember, they also happen to be radical Shia.
Okay, so they're Iranians,
most Iraqis are Shia, but a minority of them are radical Shia. That's Maliki's a radical Shia, and of course ISIS was part. ISIS are for some reason the other Sunni, and of course Saddam Hussein was Sunni. He was part of the Sunni minority. His Ba'ath Party persecuted the Shia, so in a way ISIS was payback for what Saddam are fighting back against the Shia, who were fighting back against the Sunni. It's the same thing, back and forth like ping pong, and hopefully all of that will be resolved when they reinstitute their currency, have all of these international contracts with non-sectarian nations, separate themselves from Iran, and stand on their own, get their nation's infrastructure rebuilt, and that takes time. But the first step, obviously, is the passage of the 2020 budget and the reinstitution of their currency, which we hope and I believe will occur in January 2020.
Or before.
I don't see it happening before, but it could. I hope it does. I mean, I hope it happens tomorrow. I'd love to be talking about something else.
I hope it ruins your wedding. That wedding you're going to. I hope it ruins the wedding.
Well, it won't ruin it because I will leave that wedding an extremely wealthy man. But by the way, the wedding is my nephew / godson who is a Army Ranger. So I do not want to mess with that guy. You know,
I heard that.
When he was a kid, you know, I could dominate him in the tickle fights, but at this age, right now, in this point in time, he could end me in about 15 seconds.
Now I have a legitimate question. My legitimate question is trust related. Say I want to have two residences, one in Florida, the other one in Illinois. So I take my through the trust, I purchase property in Illinois. I purchased property in Florida, and I got vehicles I want to purchase for the Florida residents and vehicles for the Illinois residents, but under my current driver's license, the state of Illinois will only allow, well, let me just get to it. How would I insure those vehicles to where I can drive them with insurance if they're registered in that presiding state, Florida and Illinois? Now, I know Florida.
Well, remember, car insurance companies, unlike health insurance companies, can cross state lines. But you are creating a complicated scenario if you try to have two state residents. You're still going to have to declare one state as your primary residence, and the statutes regarding that state might affect how you accomplish all of that. But don't get too cute, because after the RV, you should simply have enough money to be able to handle your business without trying to nickel and dime the situation.
Well, that wasn't my intention, because if I'm in Illinois, I don't want to have to drive my car to Florida just to have a vehicle, and I got a residence there. You know, I might want to be one of those snowbirds. You know, the wintertime comes here.
Well, you're still going to have to declare a primary residence. You can't have two primary residences, and that's where the insurance will have to come from.
So they can insure my vehicle in Florida if I have a primary in Illinois?
If you have a piece of property in all 50 states, you're still going to have to declare one state, your state of residence, and that state will determine the insurability.
Now, it's insured through the trust. The trust would be covered under the insurance for that, right?
The insurance company would insure a car that was not owned by you personally, but owned by the trust.
That's what I want. Okay, so it's owned by the trust, which means they can insure it.
And the address of the trust should be the address of your primary residence, and that's the state which would insure the vehicle in the name of the trust.
So the vehicle purchased in the name of the trust is insured in that state.
That's right. In the state that's your state of residence, and the state of residence should also be the address of the trust. If you have a home in Florida and that is your official state of residence, that Florida address will be also the official address of the trust, and the vehicle will be insured pursuant to the statutory insurance policies available in the state of Florida to insure a vehicle that is owned by the trust, not you personally.
Okay, so I want to buy a vehicle for the property in Illinois. The state of Florida will be the insurance company that I'll have to seek to insure it, or someone in Illinois?
I would think that would be the case, but I would defer to the lawyer at our post-RV seminar. That's an example of a technical question that I don't want to get into.
Thank you.
But once again, once the reinstitution happens, we're going to completely shift gears, and these are the kinds of issues we'll be dealing with. Most of them I'll have to defer to the attorneys.
Which you could ask maybe the professor when you get a chance and let us know.
Well, after the reval, what I say to people, don't be on – if you can't wait for 30 days to come to the seminar now, Yeah, in other words, if people want to go purchase 7 cars and 2 houses and all that before the seminar, then there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to take us that long to get up to speed to have the seminar. Because we don't know when the RV is going to happen, and we can't negotiate with all of the purveyors that are coming until the RV does happen. So there's going to be that 30-day time lag, and that's just the best we can do logistically.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call and question. Say hi to the professor and enjoy your day tomorrow at the wedding.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, this is our last caller for this afternoon. Again, thanks for taking the time to listen to the call. I hope that our newer callers will contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Should you decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday afternoon. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, I will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening to the call, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.